It's just after 1:30 in the morning on November 5, 1979, in rural Charlotte County, Florida. The farm store on Highway 17 and North Washington Loop Road is the kind of place people swing by for milk, cigarettes, and coffee on their way home. Inside, 25-year-old assistant manager Adele Marie Easterly is working the late shift alone. She's young, hard-working, and well-liked by regulars. Sometime between late night and early morning, she opens the door to someone she thinks is just another customer. Instead, she lets in her killer. At 1:40 a.m., Charlotte County Sheriff's Office Road Patrol Deputy John J. Greer radios dispatch. He says he's discovered a homicide at the farm store. Deputies race to the scene. Adele is found behind the counter, shot twice with a 12-gauge shotgun, once in the back, once in the head. The cash register is disturbed. The killer has taken roughly $7 in change. It looks like a robbery, but the level of violence doesn't square with the tiny amount of money stolen. Whoever did this brought a shotgun, walked in, and executed a young woman doing her job. In 1979, Charlotte County is a smaller, quieter place, and the murder shocks the community. Detectives start with the basics. They secure the store, collect shell wads and shotgun evidence, photograph footprints, and start interviewing everyone in Adele's orbit: co-workers, friends, family, customers. Her relationships are examined. Any rumors of affairs or disputes are chased down. Among the early whispers is that Adele might have been seeing a married deputy, which adds more tension to an investigation already centered around law enforcement. But despite long hours and dozens of interviews, no solid suspect emerges. On paper, it's a classic convenience store homicide, quick, brutal, and seemingly senseless. Privately, though, some investigators are uneasy. The deputy who found the body, John Greer, isn't just any passerby. He's one of their own. And this isn't the first time his name has come up around sudden, violent death. Just 71 days earlier, on August 27, 1979, Greer called in another incident. His wife, Jackie Greer, had supposedly shot herself in their Port Charlotte home. The case was written up as a suicide, but several detectives felt something was off. There were suspicions but no hard evidence, and the file stayed closed as suicide. Now, the same deputy has discovered a murdered store clerk. Some in the sheriff's office start to quietly ask the question they can't yet prove: is this all really coincidence? Over the next year, concerns about Greer grow. In October 1980, he resigns from the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office, apparently while under internal investigation. Around that time, yet another woman connected to him, a female friend whose husband said Greer had been following her and trying to have a sexual relationship, dies in what is ruled a possible overdose in her car. There's a suicide note and empty pill bottles, and the decomposition is too advanced to determine a precise cause of death. Again, there's suspicion, but no proof. Greer leaves the agency, moves on to work at other law enforcement departments and later in aviation jobs, and the Adele Easterly case slowly goes cold. The original detectives retire, new ones come in, and the 1979 file becomes one more unsolved homicide in a cabinet. For decades, Adele's murder sits there, a 25-year-old clerk shot with a shotgun while working the night shift. Nobody charged, no clear answer for her family. Technology changes, DNA revolutionizes other cases, but there is no single breakthrough that cracks this one. What does change, slowly, is the culture around cold cases. Charlotte County eventually creates a dedicated cold case unit, and detectives begin revisiting old files with fresh eyes, re-interviewing witnesses, and retesting what little physical evidence exists. Adele's case is one of them. They go back through the original reports, the rumors about a deputy, the earlier suicide of Greer's wife, and the unexplained third death. The cluster of incidents all orbit the same man, John J. Greer. Cold case detectives look at what they can still do after so much time has passed. They track Greer's movements after he left Florida. They find that he eventually settled in Kingsport, Tennessee. Over the years, they keep tabs on him as much as they can, building what they describe as probable cause to arrest him for Adele's murder. But because so much of the 1979 evidence is circumstantial, his access, his opportunity, his proximity, his history, they know a clean confession would be the most powerful piece left to obtain. By 2023, Greer is in his mid-70s, in poor health, living in an extended care facility in Kingsport. Cold case detectives from Charlotte County decide this is their moment. In April 2023, they travel to Tennessee and sit down at his bedside. Greer is bedridden and frail, but according to detectives, he understands questions and can answer in short sentences. They ask him directly about Adele Easterly. Did you shoot her at the farm store in 1979? They also ask about his wife, Jackie. In that interview, Greer does what he never did in 1979 or 1980. He admits it. Cold case detectives say he acknowledged that he shot both Adele and Jackie. What he does not give them is a detailed narrative or clear explanation. They can't confirm from him whether Jackie's shooting was intentional or an accident as he had claimed back then. But in law enforcement terms, they now have what they were missing for over 4 decades, a direct admission from the only person who was ever seriously suspected inside the sheriff's office. Given his medical condition, detectives and prosecutors conclude Greer will never be competent to try stand. In March 2024, at 77 years old, he dies in that Tennessee care facility, never having faced a jury. But in Charlotte County, the sheriff's office decides the time has come to publicly close the case. On December 31, 2024, they announced that the cold case unit has officially cleared the 1979 farm store homicide and named former Deputy John J. Greer as the offender in both Adele Easterly's murder and his wife Jackie's death. The sheriff calls his actions vile, acknowledges the stain this puts on the agency's history, and emphasizes that investigators will continue to look at whether Greer might be linked to other unsolved cases along the Florida West Coast. For Adele's family, there is no trial, no sentencing hearing to attend, but there is finally an answer to the question that has hovered since 1:40 a.m. on that November night. Who killed her? The file that sat cold for 45 years now has a name written in ink, and law enforcement has officially said what many suspected all along, that the man who called in the crime scene was also the man who created it. It is the night of February 2, 1986, in Fremont, California. 18-year-old Michelle Xavier and 20-year-old Jennifer Dewey are driving home from an evening out. The two young women are close friends, and both families know they will return later that night. But shortly after midnight, everything changes. Neither of them makes it home. At around 2 a.m., a passing motorist on Mission Boulevard sees something disturbing on the side of the road. 2 bodies lying near a car, the headlights still on. The motorist calls police. When Fremont officers arrive, they find a brutal double homicide. Both women have been sexually assaulted and murdered. Michelle is found partially clothed, suffering fatal stab wounds. Jennifer is found nearby, also stabbed to death. The level of violence is shocking, and the nature of the crime suggests a targeted attack. Their car is left abandoned nearby. There are no eyewitnesses, no immediate suspects, and the killer is nowhere to be found. From the start, the case overwhelms detectives. The crime scene stretches across a roadside area, making evidence preservation difficult. Investigators collect fingerprints, fibers, and biological samples. In 1986, forensic science is limited, and DNA technology is still in its early stages. The evidence is stored carefully, but testing options are limited. Detectives interview dozens of people, friends, acquaintances, co-workers, anyone who might offer a lead. The case receives local and regional attention. Fremont residents are afraid. 2 young women murdered on a public roadway with no explanation and no arrest. Over the following months, police continue to investigate, but progress slows.
leads dry up. The case gradually becomes one of Fremont's most haunting cold cases. For over 3 decades, the families of Michelle Xavier and Jennifer Dewey wait for answers. The case remains open but stagnant. Detectives retire, new detectives join the force, and each generation reviews the case files. Still, no suspect is identified. The biological evidence remains preserved, waiting for technology to catch up. The break finally comes in the late 1910s, when DNA advancements allow old biological samples to be re-examined with far greater precision. Detectives from the Fremont Police Department partner with forensic scientists to submit the preserved DNA for new testing. This time, the results reveal something investigators in 1986 could never have imagined: a match. The DNA profile links to David J. Mish, a man already convicted of kidnapping and murdering a 36-year-old woman, Michaela Garrett, whose case dates back to 1988. Mish is also serving time for the 1989 murder of another woman, and he has long been suspected in multiple violent crimes in the Bay Area. At the time of the 1986 Fremont murders, he lived in the region and had a criminal history involving burglary and violence. Once the DNA match is confirmed, investigators re-examine Mish's timeline, movements, and criminal history. Everything aligns. The evidence places him at the crime scene. In 2020, prosecutors formally charge him with the murders of Michelle Xavier and Jennifer Dewey. The case finally moves toward trial almost 35 years after the murders. For the families of Michelle and Jennifer, it is an emotional milestone. Many of them attend pre-trial hearings. Some are no longer alive to see the final outcome, but their families continue to represent them. The trial begins with prosecutors presenting the retested DNA evidence as the key link to Mish. They outline his history of violent crimes, including cases involving sexual assault and homicide. They describe how the DNA on Michelle and Jennifer matched with Mish's profile, preserved after years of cold storage. The biological evidence is clear and direct. Defense attorneys argue that the evidence is old, that deterioration may have occurred, or that contamination is possible. But forensic experts testify confidently. The chain of custody holds. The testing is reliable. The likelihood of the DNA belonging to anyone other than Mish is extraordinarily small. Witnesses who were involved in the original 1986 investigation testify about the condition of the crime scene and the evidence they collected. New forensic analysts explain how modern technology finally unlocked what older methods could not. Detectives testify about the renewed investigation that led to Mish's arrest. In February 2024, after reviewing the evidence and hearing from both sides, the jury returns their verdict. They find David J. Mish guilty of the first-degree murders of both Michelle Xavier and Jennifer Dewey. After nearly 40 years, the case is officially solved. For Michelle and Jennifer's families, the verdict brings long-awaited resolution. They speak publicly about the decades of grief, the uncertainty and the frustration of not knowing who was responsible. They thank investigators, forensic scientists, and the Fremont Police Department for never giving up on the case. Prosecutors describe Mish as a violent predator whose crimes span decades. They say he evaded justice for the 1986 murders only because science had not yet advanced far enough to identify him earlier. They emphasize that the verdict ensures he will never be free again. Mish, already serving multiple life sentences, receives another life sentence for the murders of Michelle and Jennifer. He shows little reaction in court and denies all involvement despite the forensic evidence. Although justice comes late, the resolution of the case stands as a major achievement for cold case investigators. It highlights the power of modern DNA technology, the importance of preserving evidence, and the persistence of law enforcement over decades. For the families, closure does not erase the pain, but it does bring answers that were missing for nearly 40 decades. The murders of Michelle Xavier and Jennifer Dewey, once one of Fremont's most darkest unsolved crimes, are finally solved. The man responsible is convicted, and after 38 years, two young women who lost their lives in 1986 are remembered not only for their tragic deaths, but also for the justice that eventually came for them.